As the campaign in Bengal has ended this evening, I am joined by somebody who is an economist by profession and historian by passion, and now he's turned into a political activist also by passion. I am being joined today by Sri Prasenjit Basu, who was the chief economist for India at Southeast Asia at Credit Suisse First Boston and chief Asia economist at Daiwa Securities for 5 years each. And he's held multiple economic positions at various places, including the director of Asia Services at Wharton Econometrics and many others. And very importantly, he's an author of Asia Reborn and recently published India Reborn. Welcome to Samvad, Prasenjit.
Wonderful to be here with you, Mayank.
Dada, the campaign has ended and you have been very active. I've been watching you on social media. You've been very active along with Sopan Das Gupta. So I'll come to your participation in the election later on. But I'll ask you to basically give up your political hat for a moment and come across as an astute observer, which you are. I know that very well. And tell me, I don't know Bengal. I have no idea as to what Bengal is. What is the ground situation like?
Well, I think the ground situation, I've actually been with Shopon Dashgupta for the last 3 or 4 days. I've also spent about 10 days with him earlier in the month campaigning. And then I was in North Bengal for about a week, actually just visiting a tea estate I own. So I have seen the ground situation across the state. And what I observe is a very strong groundswell in favor of the BJP, of a sort that I've never really seen before. Uh, you know, Campaigning with Shopanda, I was greeted frequently by chants of Jai Shri Ram that we were using a different slogan, but as we passed by, people would shout from their windows, Jai Shri Ram, and the enthusiasm level was remarkable. So that's one. And then in North Bengal, there is widespread dissatisfaction with the failed promises of Mamata Banerjee. In particular, for instance, people pointed out that there's something called uh, Shasto Shati or Swast Ki Sati, which basically is supposed to be a health insurance alternative to Ayushman Bharat. So, Bengal residents are barred from joining Ayushman Bharat, and they instead are supposed to join the Swarth Sati program. And there's widespread dissatisfaction because most people say when we go to a hospital, even if it's a government hospital run by the West Bengal government, uh, the Swasth Sati card is not accepted.
Hmm.
This is just one aspect. So Ayushman Bharat, therefore, is a great alternative. It has wider coverage, 5 lakh annual coverage, whereas this one, Swarth Sati, is just 2 lakhs, and even that 2 lakhs is never paid out, and hospitals therefore have stopped accepting it. So that's one small thing that I heard a lot about in North Bengal. But apart from that, across the state, there is dissatisfaction with incidents like that horrific episode that happened at RG Kaur Hospital in the heart of Kolkata, where a young doctor, very promising young doctor, was raped and killed in the line of duty, and the director of the hospital was protected for weeks by Mamata Banerjee's government. She is also the health minister of West Bengal. So, as health minister, she was responsible for this episode. The man Mr. Ghosh, who was appointed by her, was clearly culpable, but he was basically transferred to another hospital where he could well perpetrate something similar. So, this sort of incident has had a huge impact. I remember that my late mother was deeply, deeply mentally disturbed by that episode, as I think, were most of the women of Bengal and the men of Bengal. This sort of episode basically is an absolute shame for us Bengalis, and person perpetrating it is not somebody that we want to continue in office in this state. That is why I am so heavily involved, because I want to play whatever small part I can in ensuring that Bengal has a future. The Bengal of 100 years ago, was the industrial heartland of India, certainly of Eastern India, but really the heartland of India's modern industries. Uh, that that is completely over. Uh, when the Tatas wanted to start a major initiative here in Bengal with automobile manufacturing, they were turfed out by Mamata Banerjee when she was an opposition leader. And sadly, that campaign is what enabled her to come to office. So there is a groundswell against the fact that over this 15-year period, there has been absolutely no new industry emerging in Bengal. We have seen the remarkable spectacle of a Trinamool MP claiming that Bengal never really had any industry. And so to think that this government is going to suddenly introduce industry into Bengal is ridiculous. Now, that is such a bizarre statement because, if you just go back to the 1950s, the first loan to a private sector company in the world given by the World Bank in the 1950s was to a company based just outside Kolkata in a place called Burnpur, Indian Iron and Steel Company, run by Biren Mukherjee. Now, that was yet another example of Bengali entrepreneurship at its best, bringing high quality steel to the world and being recognized by the World Bank for the quality of work that they were doing. And unfortunately, in the 1960s, that company and many others were destroyed by the communist movement. And to our great shock, instead of a more right of center, a more pro market, pro business party replacing the CPIM, what has replaced the CPIM is an even more anti-business government that really has done very little to reverse the backsliding, the economic backsliding of this state.
But we have seen Mamata Banerjee, she goes out on foreign tours with a very large entourage, including celebrities, film actors, everybody to get, and she gets MOUs done. I mean, various places in the world. She stays for a very long time in London, I believe. I mean, so what is that all about? If the money is not coming in, the MOUs are not being implemented, and as you said, she's not very pro market, pro industry. So what is that all about?
Well, that's all a big joke. It's a classic tamasha. For instance, on a recent tour of Spain, of all places, it was announced that the great Indian cricket captain Sourav Ganguly would be starting a steel mill. We have yet to see even the first evidence of any groundbreaking for that steel plant. Now, that steel plant was supposed to be in collaboration with some Spanish steel company. Now, Spain is not particularly famous for steel in any case. What it's probably better known for is football, and Sourav Ganguly definitely collaborated with Spanish clubs to improve one of India's leading clubs, Mohun Bagan. Uh, he at one time had changed the name to ATK Mohun Bagan, etc. And that was a role that he had played, but that was nothing to do with an investment mission. Now, if you look at investment missions, there was that famous trip to London last year. Mamata Banerjee had promised that Kolkata is going to be the new London. this is quite ironic because the only evidence of Kolkata becoming a new London is that there's a small replica of Big Ben, the great clock that adorns the parliamentary building in Westminster. The Big Ben has a little replica if you drive into Kolkata from the airport. But apart from that, I see very little evidence of Kolkata moving in the direction of becoming a new London. Because, quite frankly, if the economic uh, uh, base of a state and a city is so weak, then it's unlikely to be able to become a cultural hub. So, if you think of Bengal as a cultural hub, it clearly was. A century ago, there was tremendous cultural activity. It was the theatre capital of India by a long way. And theatre in various languages, Bengali, English, Hindi, was all occurring in this great city. Today, the theatre scene is a pale shadow of itself. And the rest of it, perhaps the only thing that remains is there are some artists of caliber still in this city, painters. But in terms of music and so on, Kolkata has fallen by the wayside, even in that area. In sports, we talk about football. When India won the gold medal at the Asian Games in 1951, it was basically led by Shoilen Manna, and the team was full of Bengal footballers. Similarly, when the last gold medal at an Asiad was won under the leadership of Chuni Goswami, P.K. Banerjee, and so on were the foundation of that leading team. But if you look at the current scenario, even in football, there are hardly any Bengalis in the national team. There are hardly any Bengalis even in the main ISL teams. So football has just fallen by the wayside. And Mayank, you're a hockey aficionado. You would remember that there was something called the Baton Cup based in Kolkata, which is one of the great hockey tournaments of the past. And so there was a tradition. Leander Paes and Gurbakh Singh were members of the 1972 bronze medal winning team at the
Waste
Munich Olympics.
waste
And
space.
yeah, not
Leander's father.
Leander, Leander's
Leander's
father.
father.
Leander's father, V Space, and Gurbakh Singh were members of that team from Kolkata. They learned their hockey in the Maidans of Kolkata. And today, if you look at the Indian hockey team, there's no representation, and this state now plays hardly any part. Now, if you look at just say KKR, the Kolkata-based IPL team, KKR is the only IPL team that has no players from its home state. For at least the last 5 years, there's not been a single home state player in the KKR team. Look at the Punjab Kings team. You have the core of the team is Punjab players. Delhi team, Delhi Capitals. The core of the team is Delhi players. The KKR team has zero. At least for the last 5 years. When I tell my Calcutta friends and so on, they say, no, oye, Varun Chakravarti. You see, they think that Varun Chakravarti of Tamil Nadu must be a Bengali. But that is the closest you can come to a proper Bengali being in the team. There's no Bengali. Now, so there's perhaps, there's the closest is Anukul Roy of Bihar. Now, the point is that this is the only team like that. Now, why has this happened? It has happened because when you have economic decline in a state, it begins to affect everything. So I'd say for 49 years now, Bengal has been ruled by people either by the left or by the extreme left. And Mamata Banerjee does not present herself as being extreme left, but surely if the communists were trying to bring investment by the Tatars into Bengal, the person who opposed that is further left. So the idea that Bengal never had industry is so ludicrous, but it is now uh, sought to be presented by this the incumbent government, the TMC government, as something that we should accept. That Bengal really never had any industry, and therefore it cannot even aspire to having any more. So you talked about those great jamborees. There's a Bisho Bangla uh, annual investment summit held where many MOUs are signed. Not a single MOU translates into actual investment in the creation of new job creating industries or services jobs. So if you think about Bangalore and Hyderabad, you know, Calcutta, if you think about the Calcutta of old, or the Kolkata that we now call it was the educational hub of India. In a century ago, Jagadish Chandra Bose was doing groundbreaking work. He actually discovered radio waves. Although Marconi initially got the credit for about 100 years, the IEEE, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, now recognizes that the discoverer and inventor of radio waves was indeed Jagadish Chandra Bose. Prafullo Chandra Rai was doing great work in chemistry. He was a world class professor of chemistry and doing groundbreaking research in that area. And not just that, he had established a company called Bengal Chemicals, which did remarkably well in the post Swadeshi era. So, apart from that, there was C.V. Raman. C.V. Raman may not be a Bengali, but he was doing his research in Kolkata, and Ronald Ross discovered the cure for malaria sitting in Kolkata and working in the University of Kolkata. So
Dada, I'll
that was,
come in here because we got talking a very vibrant past, a very gloomy
yes,
present. Now you are actively into politics now because you are campaigning for a very prominent candidate. So I assume that you are into politics now, as of now. How do you plan to bring back industries into Bengal? Because the culture is gone. The culture is gone. The working culture is terrible. People working out there tell me that it's amongst the worst in the country. People don't know what to work. I might sound very harsh, but that is what people who are investing, who are carrying a legacy business in Bengal tell me that it's terrible. People don't want to work. So how do you plan to make Bengal golden again?
well, you have to create an investment climate that is conducive to investors, A, and B, you have to create an incentive structure for work. And I think that going on hartals, having lots and lots of holidays during the year, etc. Those are things that militate against a vibrant work culture. But if you look at Bengalis outside Bengal, I just note that outside, just across my house in Delhi, uh, a huge building was demolished towards the end of January and has been, a new, completely new building has come up just in 2 or 3 months. I'm just struck by the fact that most of the workers are Bengalis, and the pace at which they are working just is astonishing. Every time I come to Kolkata for a week and I go back, I find so much work more has been done. It's almost complete. I mean, there's a 4-story building that is being put up by about these 10 workers who work day and night in the blazing sun, in the rain. They keep working. So it is not as if Bengalis are averse to work. If you look at Bengalis outside Bengal, they are working really hard. So there's something wrong with the the climate of incentives in Bengal, which has resulted in uh, those staying behind in Bengal being seen as averse to work. But
Uh-huh.
if you create a conducive environment, if you create an environment that is work oriented, I am sure that the Bengalis will come forward and take the opportunities in hand. So, I think that is the key thing. Now, I think that the labor market reforms create a huge opportunity for Bengal because just across in Bangladesh, there is one of the world's leading garment manufacturing and export hubs. So, if Bangladesh can do it, why can't West Bengal? The cost of labor is similar or slightly lower, in fact, I'd say in West Bengal. The cost of everything. When I come here, I find that when I order a Swiggy meal, it costs one third of what it does in Delhi, maybe one fourth of what it does in Bombay. So you actually have a very low cost of living here. You have, therefore, you don't need, the entire cost structure will be a lot lower. But obviously, you point to the right thing, which is that there is, the work culture has deteriorated drastically. That is because we've had leftist oriented governments for 49 years. And that militates against a vibrant work culture. Once we have a more center-right government, a government like the BJP has at the center, then there'll be, first of all, cooperation between the central and the state government. And I think that there will be the opportunity. I would say one of the things we should be doing in West Bengal is to invite some of the leading garment exporters of Bangladesh to explore opportunities to invest in West Bengal, because a lot of the garment exporting companies in Bangladesh were seen as closely affiliated to the Awami League. Many of their leaders of those businesses have spent months and years in jail ever since Sheikh Hasina was ousted as prime minister. So I think there's a huge opportunity to get some of those Awami League affiliated businessmen to come and explore opportunities in West Bengal. There's lots of land available. I mean, I think there's often a fear that where's the land? I think there's more than enough land. It needn't just be in the city of Kolkata. There's lots of land in outside Shiliguri, Jalpaiguri, in Malda. There's lots of places where you could create this kind of textile hub. And Bengal, in addition, I mean, India, in addition, has ample cotton available. So cotton textiles, apart from synthetic textiles, could be a big focus area. So I think that that is one area where Bengal can come up as a strong entity. Second thing I think is health tourism. Bengal still, despite the horrible RG Kaur episode and the long neglect of government hospitals in this state by, especially by the Trinamool government, Bengal still has very high quality doctors. And therefore, around those doctors, you could create a much stronger hub for health tourism. And at the moment, most of the health tourists come from Bangladesh. We could extend that to people from all over Southeast Asia, and not just that, but people from the West. So if you want to make Kolkata the alternative to London, one way is to make Kolkata a hub for NHS tourists, those who need procedures that are too expensive and too long in the National Health Service in the UK. They should come to Kolkata, where they'll find that there are brief glimpses of the British past of this city, and they'll be able to also get their health problems resolved. So that's another area. And I think financial. I'd say that Bengal and Kolkata should look to Southeast Asia as being its hinterland, and there should be a much greater collaboration between Kolkata and Singapore, Kolkata and Bangkok, Kolkata and Kuala Lumpur, to create a flow of financial capital as well as a financial hub. Now, you look at the Calcutta Stock Exchange; it has been dormant and it's about to be entirely dissolved. But the Calcutta Stock Exchange, until 40 or 50 years ago, was the second largest stock exchange in India, and it was a very significant player. So I'd say that given that Coal India is still headquartered here, Hindustan Copper is headquartered here, we could make Kolkata a hub for the trading of futures and options in commodities of the sort that Chicago has become in the US relative to New York. So New York is the hub for equities and fixed income. Chicago is the hub for commodity trading, futures and options, etc. And that is where Kolkata could come in, because it is still the hub of a major mineral producing region. There's Jharkhand and Odisha, which produce a lot of minerals. Bengal has some of its own coal, etc. So we could make this a hub for a new kind of finance, and those are some of the areas that that we need to focus on. In addition, education needs attention. Bengal used to be, as I said, education capital of India. That has fallen by the wayside. And one of the things that has been neglected is English language education. We need to have the new education policy of the national government implemented in full, so that English education begins at a young age, and we don't have generation after generation, as we've had for the last two generations, that are unable to communicate properly in English, and that creates significant problems even in areas like, not just things like IT, but also in arguing before the Supreme Court. Until 40 years ago, 50 years ago, some of the leading lawyers of India were Bengalis. Siddhartha Shankar Rai was, right until the end of his life, a leading constitutional lawyer. And there were many others. Many of them were very, very successful in politics as well. Somnath Chatterjee, whose father was a Hindu Mahasabha MP, became a CPIM MP, became Speaker, but he was also a superb lawyer. So
But we'll need to
these are
we'll need to move forward, Prasenjit, much to cover in a very
so
short time.
education. I think develop the education hub
Education.
again. Yeah.
Okay. There's a friend of mine who's an industrialist, not a very big industrialist based in Kolkata. Now he travels the world and he comes back. You were talking about London, the similarity, I mean, the effort to become London. Now he says that there is one thing in which Calcutta is very close to London. That is an adverse demographic change. Is
Yeah.
that true? You agree with that? That has that happened?
Yes. London's mayor is a Muslim, and so is Kolkata's mayor. Kolkata's mayor is Firad Hakim, who
But they're
also
citizens.
is a
They are
you know.
legal citizens, I'll say. I'm talking about the
Yeah.
illegal migrants in both countries.
Yes. So now I think the illegal migration issue is a huge issue in Bengal and Assam. And in fact, ironically, it was precipitated by the 1971 war. If you think about the 1971 war, during that war, more than 20% of East Pakistan's population took flight and came into India. And of that, a very large proportion were Hindus, but there were a fair number of Muslims as well. And ironically, since the end of that war, over the subsequent decades, we have seen wave after wave of new Muslim migrants from East Pakistan or Bangladesh coming into India. And they constitute a very significant chunk of the voting population in West Bengal and Assam. And even in places like Delhi and the NCR, there is a massive proliferation of these Bangladeshis. In fact, in my building, I know of three of them working. When I talk to them, it's very clear they are Bangladeshi. They are of Bangladeshi descent, but some of them, their families have been here for 40, 50 years. So they become legalized over time. So the demographic change that occurs, I think, is quite dangerous, partly because of what Firad Hakim, the mayor of Kolkata, sometimes says. He says in public that, look, once we are the majority, then we will ensure that the other communities have help in effect. So it's not if we have a majority, but once we have the majority. So, and the ironic aspect is that Firad Hakim's statements are never condemned by Mamata Banerjee. And it now turns out, I mean, just two or 3 days ago, she pointed out that Firad Hakim's mother was a was a Bengali Brahmin Hindu, and she was the sister or first cousin of Mamata Banerjee's mother.
Is that
So
true?
she has held his hand up and said this. So I think most people were unaware of this until 2 or 3 days ago. Apparently, Humayun Kabir, the Trinamool dissident, has been saying this for 6 months. I had not heard it until I saw that clip of Mamata Banerjee herself making such a claim that her mother had been given refuge or something in the home of Firad Hakim's family. Anyway, uh, so, but the really problematic aspect of someone like Firad Hakim and his statements is that they have become normalized, and therefore, this should, I think, have been much more of an issue in this election. Yeah, interestingly, the BJP has not made it as big of an issue as they could and I think should have, uh, because they don't want to be seen as too communal, etc. I don't think it's a communal issue. What is, you know, the Muslims who
National
were
security issue.
it's a much bigger national security issue. There are large parts of the Bangladesh West Bengal border that have not been fenced, and they have not been fenced primarily because the state government has worked very hard to ensure that fencing does not happen. It actively opposes the fencing of the border, and that is a big problem area. So we have a serious national security problem if this demographic invasion continues. And unfortunately, it is. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it is very clear that it is still happening. And what has already happened is is bad enough. I mean, the fact that the proportion of Muslims in the population of Bengal is probably somewhere between 30 and 36% is already a large number. And we'll find out when the census is completed what the actual number is. But it's a very high proportion, and in some states, like in some districts like Murshidabad, there was an episode that was very similar to the Kashmir Valley where Hindus were forced out just last year. So this is something that concerns the people of Bengal. I know that uh, several of the people who, uh, uh, in my family and extended family in Delhi, who have Bengali maids, drivers, etc., they've all come back. And most of the ones that I know, have come back to vote because they want to counter the demographic invasion. Uh, some of the others had gone to places like Assam to vote. The Muslim ones had generally gone to Assam to vote. The Hindu ones have come back to Bengal to vote because they keep talking about this. Now, it's quite interesting that, just the other day in Kolkata, I was talking to a temporary helper that we've engaged for my 5 or 6 days that I'm here. And I was asking her, so who are you going to vote for? She said, no, that is a secret. I cannot say that. And then she saw that just as I was leaving, I was wearing my BJP scarf. So she said, oh, actually, since you're wearing that, I can tell you that's the one that I want to vote for you. I said, well, why do you fear? There's no fear, but there is this enormous fear that voters have of expressing their anti-Trinamool um, uh, ideas and revealing the fact that they're going to vote against Trinamool. So you're going to, I think, see this silent majority come to the ballot box and deliver what could be a real surprise for the Trinamool.
Very briefly, Prasenjit, completely out of time. Very briefly, the women voters were in the vanguard of TMC, Mamta in particular. Now I'm being told that they have started abandoning TMC. Maybe not Mamta, but they have started abandoning TMC. Is that true? I mean, have you seen that happen on the ground? You get that
I
feeling?
have seen it. I have definitely seen it on the ground, and there is an enormous amount of anger particularly in Kolkata, about the RG Kaur episode. It was a horrific episode, and people were mentally disturbed. I know that my late mother I was very, very disturbed by what had happened. The fact that something like this could happen in Kolkata, where a young doctor is raped and murdered, and then there's even worse, an enormous cover up to try and ensure that the culprits get away scot free. That episode has shaken the Bengali psyche to its core, and the Bengali woman psyche, especially to its core. So I don't think that the old, so the old line in the last election was Bangla Nijer Mekei Chai. Bangla or Bengal wants its own girl, Nijer Me, own girl. That line, by the way, is not being used this time. So it is clear that even the Trinamool recognizes that what it has done over the last few years has turned off the woman voter, and the fact that the mother of the RG Kaur victim is a BJP candidate in Panihati is another sign of that, and she is strongly canvassing, of course, on her behalf. And many people have said that if the Trinamool was truly repentant, then it would not put up a candidate against her. But in fact, they have put up a candidate against her, and they're fighting hard to defeat her, just as they fought really hard to defeat the victim of Sandesh Khali at the last parliamentary election. So these are episodes that the people of Bengal cannot forget.
You're
And
completely
there's
out
also
of time, Prasenjit.
yeah.
Completely out of time, and you have spared so much time out of your election campaign. So we'll have to conclude on that. And my best wishes to you and Shopanda, because you're contesting. He's contesting from a constituency where I was a voter till the late 90s. So my best wishes, and I hope to come back on the 4th or after the 4th for for further post poll discussions. Thank you so
All
much.
right.
Thank
Thanks so
you.
much, Mayank. Thank you. Namaskar.